Hi guys, you are welcome to my channel. My name is Olivia, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to cut and sew a simple basic skirt. So if this is something you are interested in, then please keep on watching. So I'll begin by folding my fabric into two, using quarter of the widest part of my measurement, which is the hip. All right, so you divide that into 4 and then you add 2 inches extra for sewing allowance. I'll then go ahead and draw a straight line like this as the starting line, and from there I'll mark the length of my skirt. I'll add to the length 2 inches for hemming allowance. So from the starting line, I'll input my waist to hip measurement, and then I'll add ½ inch for sewing allowance. All right. From the waistline or the starting line, I'll take quarter of my waist, and then I'll input it on the waist, and I'll go ahead and add 2 inches for sewing allowance. On the hip, I'll repeat the same thing, quarter of the hip. I'll input that, and then I'll add 2 inches for sewing allowance. So if you want a straight skirt, the same measurement you have at the hip, you input it on the hem line, all right, and then you connect that with a straight ruler. And then if you want a fitted skirt, you deduct 1.5 from the whole measurement you have on your hip, and then you input that on the lower part of the skirt. In case you want it very fitted, you can do away with 2 inches from the whole measurement you have on your hip. All right, so I'll come down from the hip by 1 inch, and then I'll connect from that 1 inch to the length of the skirt. You realize that I stop on the length of the skirt, not the hem. All right, so from the length of the skirt to the hem, you just connect it with a straight line, so you can have the same measurements on the hem line. All right, so do not connect it from the hem line to the hip, but connect it from the length of the skirt to the hip. All right, so you don't have any shortage. All right, so you connect from the waist to the hip as well. So coming down from the hip by 1 inch will help the hip part of the skirt not to be pointed. So in case you end up getting any pointed part, just blend it with your chalk. So from the center of the skirt, I'll come down by 1 inch, and from that 1 inch I'll connect it to the waistline, excluding the allowance. The reason is that while sewing, you do away with the sewing allowance, so there's no need connecting to the sewing allowance, if I'm making sense. While sewing, you understand what I mean. All right, so while cutting, do not cut off that 1 inch from the center of the waist, because you use the front to cut the back. So in case you want to attach a band to this skirt, you have to subtract the length of your band from the length of your skirt, and then you use that measurement to cut your skirt, and afterwards you cut the band and you attach it. All right, and if you want to attach the skirt to a blouse, a bodice, right, if you want to do that, all you have to do is to subtract the length of your half length from the full length of your dress, and then the result you get, you use it to cut the skirt part of your dress. For the back, you use the same width you use for the front, and then you add your desired sewing allowance to that measurement. So I'll go ahead and mark my zipper allowance. I use a zipper allowance of 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and place the front away from the zipper allowance, just like this. I'll mark the hip from the front to the back and connect it with a straight line like this. And also draw out the shape of the front onto the back. So on the zipper line, that's the line I've drawn out, I'll go in by 1 inch like this, and then I'll connect from the 1 inch to the hip line on the back, because our back is never straight, so we need to make it curvy as it is. All right, so we need to measure our waist, and then we replace that 1 inch that we took away on the back. We replace it on the side like this, and then I'll connect from that 1 inch to the hip like this. So from the new center back, we are now going to measure our zipper allowance again. All right, so I'll connect it like this, and then that will be all. So if you want to attach the skirt to a bodice, then you take away 1 inch from the center back. This is to prevent the back of your dress from folding. All right, now I'll go ahead and cut off that 1 inch from the center front like this. So the next thing to do now is to cut lining for both the front and the back. After cutting, at the lower part of the skirt, you mark the length of the skirt on the lining like this, and then you connect it this way, and then you cut it out. I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for the back. Now to sew the skirt, I'm going to put the right side of the material to the lining, attaching the waist first. So I'm going to stitch this way, and then afterwards I will understitch, and this is how it looks now. Now I'm going to flip it, right side facing each other again. Then I'll pull the lining towards the hemline of the skirt this way, and then I'll go ahead and stitch that as well. but do not understitch. So this is how it looks now. This is the waistline, right? So on one side of the skirt, I'm going to start from the waistline. I'll pin it just like I'm doing, and then to the lower part like this. And on the other side of the skirt, I'll stitch this way and stop, and then I'll stitch and also stop by leaving a space just to turn the skirt inside out. So this is after stitching, and I'll turn the skirt inside out with the help of the space I left. So the space left there, all you have to do is to pin it. You pin the excess inside, and then you stitch it. You run a stitch there. So I'll go ahead and give the front part of the skirt a very good press, and then afterwards I'll repeat the same thing to the back of the skirt. So this is the back. I've marked the zipper allowance on the center back, and then I'll leave this space to fix the zipper. Alright, so I'll stitch leaving that space. So this is how it looks after stitching and attaching the zipper to the skirt. I also left a slit at the back, and I hemmed the allowance to the lining. Now I'll put the skirt right sides facing each other together with the back, and then I'll pin the sides together. Now we are going to input our waist measurement. So you divide your waist by 2, and then from one side of the skirt you mark it this way. Wherever the measurement ends, you mark the excess and divide that excess into 2, and you mark that on each side of the skirt. The same thing to the hip. I'll mark the waist to hip on the skirt like this. I'll input half of the hip from one side of the waist, just like I did for the front. I'll mark the excess, divide it into 2, and then I'll input that on both sides of the skirt. So the same way we did for the cutting process, you come down by 1 inch, and then I'll go ahead and connect the points together. So whatever allowance you have on the hip, you repeat that allowance on the lower part of the skirt, which is the hem, this way, because all necessary measurements were done while cutting. So I'll go ahead and connect this way. Just make sure you shape out any pointed parts around the hip area. So I'll go ahead and join them together. So guys, this is the result of the skirt. I hope this video is helpful. If yes, please like it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. If you are new to this channel, you are welcome. Turn on your post notification bell as well, so anytime I upload a new video you'll be notified. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and then I'll see you in my next one. Bye.